From picking up where Tony Stark left off to flying the Iron Man flag after Secret Wars, here's everything on the Avengers, Endgame character rumored to return in the MCU. Who could be filling in Iron Man's heavy boots? Tony Stark was more than just a vital character in the MCU. He was at the center of it all, even in the real world. If his movie hadn't succeeded back in the day, the genre of superhero movies would be very different. This made it really heartbreaking when Tony sacrificed his life to defeat Thanos and his armies. There's only one person who could honor that legacy. That person, of course, is Tony's daughter. This video is all about Morgan Stark and how she could return to the MCU. I know what you might be thinking. Is she ready? Morgan might have been too young to be gearing up in an Iron Man suit at the end of Endgame, but she was showing great potential right from the start. The first time she walked into the frame, she was wearing her mom's rescue helmet, which could have been a gag, but it also could have been a sign of what was to come. Later, when Tony returned the Captain America shield to Steve Rogers, he talked about how he needed to get the thing out of the house before Morgan got her hands on it. Another example of Morgan's inclination to become a superhero. She's pretty smart for her age, which was Tony's real superpower all along. Sure, she didn't help her dad solve the time travel problem, but come on, she was a child back then. Tony's ultimate sacrifice was something that his daughter could learn a lot from and possibly be inspired by. What if I told you that there was more to Morgan than most of us got to see? Kevin Feige has been hiding a very important scene for her under his hat. I'm kidding. It's more that the scene was left on the cutting room floor because the movie was long enough already. You can find the scene easily on YouTube, though be warned, the CGI on it was never finished, and it's a big spoiler for Endgame. Remember in Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos snapped and killed half of all life in the universe, he appeared in some kind of otherworldly place where a young Gamora was waiting for him. A very similar scene was filmed for Endgame, and it would have taken place after Tony did his big snap. In the scene, Tony appears in an otherworldly version of his family home, where he meets a woman who, he realizes, is his daughter all grown up. He confesses to her that he's scared he made a mistake, and that he doesn't know whether his snap would even work. Even if it did, he was going to die and leave her and Pepper all alone. Morgan reassures him that she's proud of him, and she's glad that she got to spend time with him, and of course, she loves him 3000. Although this scene was left out of the movie, it did technically happen in the MCU, and this is important because we have an adult actress established as Morgan. Catherine Langford played Morgan in this scene, and the actress certainly has the right profile for the MCU, having appeared in major productions like Knives Out, and her star-making role in 13 Reasons Why. Those aren't very action-heavy roles, though, but Robert Downey Jr. was no Sylvester Stallone when he first started working on Iron Man. Catherine is in the perfect spot in her career for the MCU, since she's young enough to join the gaggle of younger heroes who have recently joined the franchise. She can commit a huge chunk of her life to this role, and still have time left in her career to do other stuff. So when can we expect to see Morgan Stark again? We could ask her. That's exactly what some fans did when she held a Q&A on her Instagram stories. It won't come as a surprise that she gave a vague reply, saying that she doesn't have an answer. And she couldn't tell us if she did. She followed that up by saying that it was a privilege to be in a Marvel movie, and that she loves Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man 3000. What's really interesting is that the answer wasn't a straight-up no. Lots of actors have flat-out denied rumors of an MCU appearance, with the most recent example being Andrew Garfield, who insisted that he has absolutely nothing to do with Spider-Man No Way Home. You can never trust an actor who says they aren't going to be in the MCU, but Catherine didn't go that far. Her response makes me think she's under some kind of contract with Marvel Studios, and they'd only do that if they had plans to feature her in more of their projects. Does this mean it's time to get excited for a Stark to be Iron Man again? I'd hate to get your hopes up for no reason, but it looks like Marvel has big plans in store for Morgan Stark and the Iron Man story, and those plans could kick off in Armor Wars. Penciled for release in 2024, this movie is a long overdue catch-up on what Tony Stark has left behind in the MCU, not just in terms of his actions and achievements, but when it comes to things like Stark Industries and other projects. It'll also serve as the next chapter in the storylines that'll begin with Secret Invasion and Ironheart, and 2 of the confirmed cast members are Rhodey and Riri Williams. If the movie deals with the way Tony's death affected his businesses, there's a strong chance it could feature Pepper. And if Pepper is going to be around, so will Morgan. Babysitters in the Apple are expensive. But since Morgan was born in 2019, she'd be, 6 or 7 years old in this movie? It'd definitely be too early for her to don the Iron Man suit, so it's more likely that Armor Wars will focus on Riri's adventures as Ironheart. Armor Wars could still do important work to establish Morgan Stark as the Iron Man of the future. And we've seen that Marvel Studios is planning things way ahead. Transitioning from the Infinity Saga to the Multiverse Saga has taught them some hard lessons, while their approach to the MCU was clearly modeled on Marvel's comics. One factor that they hadn't taken seriously is that unlike drawings on a page, humans grow old and can want different things out of their lives, so they won't be appearing in your movies forever. Between Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. quitting the franchise and Chadwick Boseman tragically passing away, Marvel can't count on any of its cast members for too long. That's why the MCU has introduced young heroes like Kate Bishop and Yelena Belova. You might have noticed that it's also introducing some super young heroes. The ending of Thor, Love, and Thunder, for instance, saw Thor training Gorr's young daughter, and the post-credit scene of Wakanda Forever introduced us to Toussaint, who will someday be T'Challa, Black Panther. In just the same way, Armor Wars could be the movie that sets up Morgan Stark to inherit the role of Iron Man, which would be Marvel's backup plan in case Dominique Thorne decides to quit being Ironheart, or she gets herself involved in a scandal like a certain Jonathan Majors. It might sound like it'll be a long time before Morgan Stark becomes Iron Man, but it might not be as long as you think. As we go through the Multiverse Saga, we're a long way from figuring out what the impact of this story will be on the MCU. All we know is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe will never be the same again. The Multiverse Saga will end with an adaptation of Secret Wars, and if you don't know your comics, this is a huge deal. It started with the complete destruction of the Marvel Multiverse, and in the real world, Marvel Comics wound up using it to reboot their entire line. I'm sure that the MCU Secret Wars won't go that far, though. Can you imagine if they did? We can say for sure that multiversal hijinks will feature in that movie, and who knows what the franchise will look like when all is said and done. Since timelines and universes are basically the same thing in the MCU, Secret Wars could be used to age up characters. In the new and improved MCU, Morgan, Toussaint, and Love could be old enough to assume their heroic roles. That would even give the old guard a chance to train these young heroes before riding off into the sunset for good. So, from being the MCU's Iron Man after Secret Wars, to living up to the example set by her dad, that was everything about the Avengers Endgame character rumored to return in the MCU.